One of the things I think as a former player, when I look back on my life playing in NFL, is respecting the people that came before you. And that's one thing that I've really learned in my life is to respect the people that paved the way, respect the people that put forth the effort to create a better life for where I am today in my life. And that is one thing that I really wanted to make sure that I was intentional about doing.
Welcome to the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Likewise, author of The Power of Respect in Business. Charlie is one of America's foremost authorities on respect and leadership development in family business. And now, here's Charlie.
Hello, I'm Charlie Likewise. Welcome to another episode of the Power of Respect podcast. Today we're talking about respect and the relationship to personal value. My guest today is Leonard Wheeler. Leonard was selected in the third round of the 1992 NFL Draft. Originally from a rural town in Georgia, his path to the NFL was rife with challenges that would have stopped the most aspiring players cold. After being drafted, Leonard spent 9 years in the NFL playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Carolina Panthers. Today, Leonard is founder and president of Trilucent Global, formerly Wheeler Enterprises, providing leadership development, communication training, and executive coaching to some very well-known brands. Leonard is also co-executive director for the NFL Legends community at the National Football League. He maintains his affiliation with Athletes in Action and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes as well. Welcome, Leonard.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you having me on today.
I'm very excited to have you on as well. I wanted to talk to you about this idea of respect and put it in your words, because I know you talk about that a lot and you put into practice a variety of things. And one that comes to mind is your video on the firing line. And what struck me there was it demonstrates respect not only for others, but also for yourself. And that was one of the messages I took out of that. If you could expand on that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, well, first of all, just like I said, thank you again for having me on. I always look at respect as a way of celebrating other people. And it's funny that you would bring up the firing line, because one of the ways that I wanted to show respect in the firing line is remembering people's names. I thought that even though that seems to be small, it seems to be very big when it makes people feel a certain way in terms of their value, in terms of their worth. It even talks about in the Bible how, our names are the things that sometimes will continue to be who we are, right? And so when I think about the term respect, it is a term of endearment. It is also a term that lifts people up and makes them feel, like I said, celebrated and valued.
Yeah, no, that's a great message. We've had some other people on as guests that are also achieved the highest level of athletic achievement in their lives as well. One woman who's a double medalist in Olympics and NCAA Coach of the Year in basketball. Yes. Another gentleman who was All-American in college, and he played for the U.S. men's national team in soccer and then ultimately MLS. And when I talk to them, they talk about the same things you just mentioned. The whole idea about, tapping into the best that people have to offer. And so when you're out there at a high level of athletic achievement, and there's going to be people that are sometimes better and sometimes less as well as you are, and how those people should be treated is what they talked about, as you do here. And the concept of showing respect, at least for the effort people are putting in. If you could share your examples of that, I'd appreciate it.
You know what? Getting drafted into the NFL was something that I've always aspired in my life. As a young kid, I told my mom at 8 years old that I wanted to play in the NFL. One of the things I think as a former player, when I look back on my life playing in NFL, is respecting the people that came before you. And that's one thing that I've really learned in my life is to respect the people that pave the way,
Mm-hmm.
respect the people that put forth the effort to create a better life for where I am today in my life. And that is one thing that I really wanted to make sure that I was intentional about doing. Also, respect my teammates. They are putting forth the same effort and sometimes even more effort to become a great athlete, right?
Right.
And so a lot of times what I learned how to do, Charlie, was respect my teammates, respect my team, respect my coaches, respect the owner by me doing my part. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as I learn how to do my part, I'm respecting them by saying, I want you to know that I'm going to do my part to make sure that I help this team win. And that is one way that I really, really kind of captured that accountability of learning how to respect others.
No, I think that's important, knowing what we're supposed to do and understanding what everybody else has been through or is going through at the same time. Very important. You talk about empowering people to move forward with true confidence, and to me, showing respect to people can build their confidence. It sounds like that's what you found as well.
Yeah, I mean, empowering people to move forward is a scary thing for them sometimes. And it's been scary for me at times, to find that courage that sometimes is going to come from other people. Um, I love empowering other people because I really hold them accountable for them inspiring and empowering other people. And
Right.
if we can continue to pay it forward, that is one way that I really look at that, Charlie.
And the concept of confidence is interesting because I can think of many times when I might have been afraid that I didn't know what to say or what to do, and yet in my mind, I probably knew more than I thought I did.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so, for us to be able to somehow tap into that is extremely important. That's another thing I saw you talking about tapping in the firing line, tapping into what we know other than magenta, if I could say that.
We don't have a bubble of our head saying this is all we know. I think sometimes our belief system and sometimes the way we grew up, it has a tendency to come back and haunt us. That fear that we used to have and that doubt that we used to have growing up as a kid, sometimes those things will come back to roost inside of us. And we have to make sure that one is that we're surrounded with people that will continue to lift us up and reinforce what we know is inside of us. And then two, we have to be accountable and extend grace to ourselves to know that we're better, right? And then sometimes we're going to fall back, we're going to shrink back a little bit because that's who we are, we're human beings.
Right.
Extend that grace and know that you can rebound and lift yourself back up.
Right. And not have to be right all the time, and not and
Oh,
not think that that's success.
I agree.
If that's your definition of success, we're all going to fail because we're not right all the time.
That's right. We're not.
Uh, and so to admit that gracefully and understand to look for others to help you with it, I think is key. I remember when I first sat in higher level management meetings at large companies, and I was excited to have been invited. I'm sitting at the table thinking, all these people know way more than I do, which may or may not have been true. But I
Yeah.
decided to listen. And as they discussed things, they would talk about an issue, then they would talk about their solutions or ideas. And I would think in my head, when I heard the issue, what would I do? Holding it in my head. And then I'd listen to their answers. And after a while, I began to find that more often than not, their answers were similar, or I was at least down the similar path as I was learning.
That's
And,
right.
and that's how my confidence built to even be in a meeting with those high powered folks.
And sometimes it's giving ourselves some credit, right? Giving ourselves a little bit more credit and not doubting ourselves so much because it's so easy to do. And I remember the first time I spoke at MIT. And I used to speak there for their summer program, leadership program. They have their top 90 freshmen come every year. And the first time I went and spoke there, for 3 days, I remember before I walked into the room, this doubt and fear just came over me, Charlie. It was so real. And all I kept thinking about was, what are you doing? You're at MIT. What are you thinking? And this doubt and fear, it was so real. It was prevalent. It was real. And I remember at that time, I had to bind it. Like I really did. I had to reinforce who I am, what I've been through. I'm prepared for this moment. This is my moment. Seize it. And I remember having this self-talk before I walked into the room.
Yeah.
And all of us are guilty of that in some facet, in some areas of our lives. And I just remember having that feeling, Charlie, and it was real at that moment.
No, absolutely. And I think we tend to forget that even if we say something in a different way than someone, maybe one of those high performing academic folks, it's still valuable. It still has a meaning. It still has a direction to it that, if listened to carefully, can actually unlock another piece of what they're saying.
Yeah, and look, and we also have to remember everything that I say is not meant for everyone.
Right.
There are certain people out there that is meant for. It is not meant for everyone to hear it, but it is meant for those people that hear it, that have similar experiences. It's meant to continue to pick them up and carry them forward.
No, that's true. I like the idea of presenting a number of different stories about something, because one of those stories may resonate with one person and another with a different person.
That's right.
But we're still getting the point across, and it's so important to understand that. Yeah, one of the things that goes hand in hand with this is communication style, and I think, if you could just kind of describe how your communication style has evolved, and what are your keys to communicating with others?
So that is pretty funny that you would bring up communication, because my last degree is in communications. But I remember growing up as a kid, Charlie, I was a compulsive stutterer.
Oh,
All
really?
the way through college, a compulsive stutterer my entire life. And so when I became a speaker, people that knew me from high school, they're like, what? What, what is happening here? Like, how is this happening? You're putting words together. And so I just remember, though, the fear of stuttering before I would, talk to groups, before I would talk in front of my teammates, before I would present when I was in high school. And I remember overcoming this fear. And I remember capturing and learning how to value my voice. Right? There was a fear of stuttering. So as long as we hang in this fear, we will continue to do what we've always done.
Right.
Until we break through this barrier, this false barrier that is in front of us, right? But appears to be real. Then we will not be able to find that voice. And so through that process, I've learned how to value my voice, Charlie, and learned that my voice, sometimes it's not going to be like everybody else's. And I'm okay with that. But this is the voice that God has given me. And I've learned how to celebrate and value that.
That is such an important message to everyone out there, because sometimes when you're watching television or other kinds of expression of quote unquote life, people say, oh, I've got to be like that. And if I'm not like that, there's something wrong with me.
That's it.
And that's not the case at all.
That's a great point.
So it's very important. So let's go back to respect a little bit again. We've been talking about it, I know, but tell me about some cases that you've experienced when respect uplifted you or lifted you up, and when respect or lack of respect perhaps did not. Can you share some examples?
I can share some examples. I would really recall a time. So I was doing this speaking engagement to where we had to sign autographs. This is when I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this group of kids, they were around me, this big group of kids. And about five of these kids, I just got drafted into the third round in the NFL, which is the highest level of football.
Yep.
And this kid walked up to me. He was like, ain't nothing. He was like, that ain't nothing. I'm going to get drafted in the first round. Ain't nothing. And I literally remember saying to myself, wow, what are these kids' parents? Right? Literally,
Right.
here I am at 23 years old, drafted in the third round. I'm out here signing these autographs for these kids. And these kids walk up and go, that ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. I'm going to get drafted in the first round. That ain't nothing. And I was like, whoa. Like, I was just thinking about how I grew up in my household. My mom would have knocked the teeth out of my mouth if I said something like that to anyone,
Right.
right? Let alone someone that's doing some charity work. And so I just think about those are some of the things that I really look back and I go, wow, man. I mean, that was back then. Imagine where we are now with all of the social media and
Right.
all of the distractions when it comes to us raising our children today.
No, that's incredible. And people don't understand how powerful words are. I mean, if I told you or an audience, okay, listen, I've just come across a new study by the highest level of scientists in the world that said smoking really doesn't cause cancer, and it's okay. And they've proven that it's not causing cancer, that something else causes cancer that's related to your lifestyle at that time. Now, somebody might hear that and say, "Oh, wow, I can go smoke," and all of that was not true that I just said.
Right. Yes,
And
that's
so
it.
all of a sudden, those words are powerful enough to get somebody to do something that wasn't even true if I presented that in a compelling way. And that's part of where the disrespect, I believe, is so rampant today
I
in
agree.
our country. People say anything that they want. To me, the worst case of special interest is self-interest, and it's everywhere. And as a result, people tend to say things to get their way. And that, by the way, is not only disrespecting other folks in my mind, it disrespects yourself when you do that
I
because
would,
you can't get out of that trap.
and it is a trap, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the areas, Charlie, when I just think about respect, one of the areas that I love getting better at learning to respect is home. I think I think sometimes we can disregard home as in terms of respecting our wives, respecting our children, respecting our husbands, um, respectful voice, respectful tone, respectful physiology. Sometimes we can respect people outside of our homes better than we can respect people within our homes.
That's true.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So from an accountability perspective, I think that's where it should start. Because once we learn how to do that, I think then when we venture out, we can then be more responsible for respecting other people.
I think it's important to understand that because you're with your family all the time and understanding those ebbs and flows. And by the way, when you do make a mistake, and we're going to,
That's right.
it doesn't make us a terrible person. Understanding that we can recover from mistakes and how to learn how to do that.
Yes.
Uh, Not only in personal relationships, but it's true. I mean, my son plays golf and he's pretty good at it at 13 years old. I'm not sure where he got it from, but he is.
He is pretty good at it, Charlie, because I've witnessed it.
Yeah. And when he finished second in a tournament, he was very upset. And he says, "I hate to lose." And I'm like, well, hold that thought, but don't let it destroy you or anybody around you, because it's so important to understand that that doesn't make you a bad person.
And Charlie, I wanted to add one thing to that because this young man, you have a great young man. I've had
Thank
a
you.
chance to meet him a few times. And one thing that I've learned from sports is learning how to lose gracefully is an area that I learned to grow in. Because when I learned how to lose gracefully, when I started winning, I learned how to win gracefully too.
Yeah. It's important because it helps you put things in perspective, which gets back to the understanding of what respect really means.
That's right.
It's about perspective and relative to the circumstances you're in.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I think those are important things that, and there's not a course in them in school, unfortunately, but
No, it's
when
not.
when parents are involved, that's the best they can do with it. When parents aren't involved, hopefully there's some form of mentorship in the community, and that's another aspect of this whole element of respect is mentoring. If you have time, the euphemistic "you" has time. It's so important to consider how you can mentor other people as well.
I think that's a form of paying it forward, right, Charlie? It
Yes.
is, it's taking what has been taught to us because we did not learn it on our own, regardless of what some of us want to believe. There were some people speaking and doing into our lives our entire life. And so
Right.
learning how to share that and move that forward into other people's lives is important.
And it's not just telling us what, it's showing us how. I
Putting
mean,
it into action.
yeah, so many subjects of any kind are usually, and even in the academic world, a listing of what, learn this what. And then we always struggle and need experience to eventually get to how if we can.
The application becomes important at some point.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. All right. So what's a leader that most influenced you?
Do you know when my birthday is January 15th,
Okay.
which is Martin Luther King's birthday.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
And so when I was a kid, I used to listen to all of his speeches.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I loved about his speeches, number one, was his passion.
Mm-hmm.
Number two was his nonviolent movement. Is that he believed that if you treat people the way you want to be treated, it will accomplish the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always grown up looking at him as a leader. Another leader of mine is my mom. She used to always tell me, Charlie, baby, I want you to fight your battles on your knees, and then when you get up, have a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Fight your battles on your knees. She was always a woman of prayer. She had a strong belief system when it comes to treating people fairly, and she just she just taught me how to fight. Like she taught me how to fight fairly. She taught me how don't be overly emotional when it comes to making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the right questions, but don't be afraid to get in the mix and create change.
No, that's creating change is so important, and doing that collectively is so important. It's interesting. One of the reasons why respect has become such a trigger word for me, and I might have mentioned this to you in one of our previous conversations we've had face to face. It's if I'm in a situation where I'm beginning to hear from a person or a group of people stuff that I don't like or even disagree with, and maybe even disagree with vehemently, instead of reacting to that, I try to say in my head in the next nanosecond, which is not always, how can I respect this person? It causes me to pause just long enough to not go up the what I call the emotional scale from being okay to frustrated or even angry. When now the communication process is going to fall apart, as is any connection with that person or group of people.
Charlie, that's a great point. And that's one thing that I learned in the locker room is that you're going to have so many different people from different families, different households, different environments, different ethnicity groups, different belief systems. You're going to have Muslims, you're going to have Christians, you're going to have gay, you're going to have racist, you're going to have a bias. I mean, we have every group of people in our locker room.
Okay.
And one thing that we learned to do, Charlie, I am going to win for you. by respecting you.
Wow.
And so when you learn how to respect your brother and your sister that's across from you, and you know that they don't like you,
Right.
like
Right.
you know they don't like you, Charlie.
Right.
But you look at them and you go, regardless of you liking me or me liking you, I promise that when we go out on this field, I'm going to give all of my effort to make sure you win.
That's a great point.
That's respect.
That is in a nutshell. Absolutely. It's respect in the face of conflict, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do.
Conflict, controversy,
Yeah.
and just saying, Lord, it's only by your grace that I'm able to respect my brother and my sister today, regardless of how I feel. Help me die to that person to where I can continue to lift them up.
That makes so much sense. So, and we've essentially talked about it. You may have just, in fact, said it, but if you were talking to an upcoming leader today or a group of people that are looking for their next step, how would you advise them?
So I teach a lot around emotional intelligence and leadership.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that I love teaching emotional intelligence and leadership, one, we're all leaders somewhere. If it's not in public, it's in our home, it's for our children. We're all leading. We all are emotionally triggered.
Right.
Right? I mean, if it's the person that cut you off on the road, on the highway, or if it's the person that flicked you off in the grocery parking lot, or if it's somebody on Christmas when they're supposed to be happy and they're going, get out of my way, you idiot. Whatever the cases are, how do you continue to control moments, right? Parts. It's not, you know how your wife might say, Charlie, you always do that. Well, you know, you don't always do that, right?
Right.
These are those moments that we have to control, the parts of us that we have to control when it comes to leading, when it comes to communication, when it comes to making sure that we're wanting to deliver a message. How do I deliver those messages and those pieces in the right moments to where it can be taken the way that I intended?
No, absolutely. I think that, and then helping them do that whenever you have the opportunity. It may be something you see on the street and you're able to put in a word at that
That's
point.
it. Yes.
It could be any moment. It doesn't mean you have to be in a classroom to do it. It doesn't mean you have to be formal to do it.
That's right.
It means you have to care to do it.
You have to care.
Yeah. Well, this has been terrific. Your wisdom, I'm sure, is going to be very valuable to our audience. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation?
Oh man, I thank people like you, Charlie, because you know the platform that God has given you. You know, you're able to have other people on it to where they can share their voice and their opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but they can share their lives. You know, they can share their past. They can share the things that they're excited about. So I want to thank you so much for your podcast. Thank you for your leadership team. And thank you so much for your time of having me on because I want to make sure that I respect that as well.
I appreciate it, and I certainly feel that you've done a great job helping our audience see these issues, and hopefully out there's a little nugget in there. They say, "Oh, that's how I'll do something different next time," and it turns out great.
Well,
So,
hopefully they can follow me on social media.
yeah.
Instagram and TikTok is Leonard Wheeler 7. My Twitter is Leonard Wheeler 7. My TikTok is Leonard Wheeler 37. So if they want to follow me on my social media, my LinkedIn, I'm under Leonard Wheeler. And so I would definitely love a follow.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Leonard Wheeler for being with us today, and I especially want to thank you for listening to this episode of The Power of Respect. If you like what you heard today, please consider sharing the podcast and visit our website at expertsinhow.com. A quick reminder, if you'd like to read my book, The Power of Respect in Business, it's available on Amazon. In addition, my new book, The Power of Legacy and Family Business, will be out soon. Thanks again for listening, and remember, respect builds trust, trust builds relationships, and relationships are the key to leadership.
This has been the Power of Respect podcast with Charlie Likewise, author of The Power of Respect in Business. To listen to more episodes and learn more about Charlie's leadership development programs, visit his website, expertsinhow.com.